Welcome to Zeitgeist Radio. I'm your host, Morgan Rowe, founder of the Zeitgeist Academy. Zeitgeist means spirit of the times, and it is the collection of cultural forces that all contribute to what it feels like to be alive and part of a dynamic culture. Every episode, I speak with someone from a unique musical subculture. We dig into their passion and explore how music is a powerful force that brings people together. If you're like me, you come out of these interviews with all sorts of questions. Each week, after speaking with one of our amazing guests, I dive into something they introduced us to that I find interesting or important. I write a blog post about it and email a nice tidy bundle to your inbox every 2 weeks. Never miss an exploration of an awesome musical subculture. Join the Academy and sign up for my free newsletter at zeitgeistacademy.com/radio. My guest today is Billy Gerhardt, owner of the Saucepot Studios in San Luis Obispo, California. If our audio sounds super amazing, incredible today, that is because we are recording here in his studio. Hi, Billy. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So this is super fun for me. Can you describe, I know this is a podcast, but can you describe for our listeners where we are and what we're doing?
Yes. So we're in the control room right now of the Saucepot Studios.
Yeah.
And this used to be an empty warehouse. So we basically built all the walls you see and all the sound absorption panels and all that.
It's really cool because it looks like the cross between like a spaceship and like a 90s I don't know, some cool 90s jam.
We did that on purpose. We spent a lot of time on like the woodwork of this place because we wanted it to have that vibe.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was done by Wes, my business partner, who just went hard on all the trim here. And to this day, people come in and they see it and they're just amazed.
Nice. Yeah, no, this is super duper fun. So I'd love to, can you just kind of tell people like, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so at the Saucepot, we started as a rehearsal space for bands. So we have 13 rooms that are 24/7 rehearsal spaces for bands in San Luis Obispo. And they can come here any time of day or night and practice and not have to worry about noise complaints or just anything like that. So it's a workspace for musicians. And that's how we started with our first warehouse.
I gotta know, is that because you got complaints about your band all the time? Why did you see the value in that?
Yeah, that is 100% the reason that we started this. Yeah, it's funny. So Wes and I, my business partner, we were going through the Cuesta Jazz program. And we already had a band on the side, but we were going through the jazz program. And we were rehearsing in our living room. And at this point, this was like 12 years ago. And we lived on Tasahara, which is in Slow, over off of Foothill. And it was like 3 p.m. And we're like practicing jazz. I'm like playing like a jazz, like a ride cymbal, like, and the cops show up to our house. And I think it happened a couple times, like 2 or 3 times. And by the third time, they were just like, okay, guys, we're going to start just writing you huge tickets. And, you know, we're going to tell your landlord this and that.
What are you supposed to do? That's so messed up.
And it really came down to we had just one bad neighbor who was right next to us. Everyone else was fine with it, but we had one bad neighbor. And so thanks to him,
I guess thanks, bad neighbor. That worked out well for you.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, so we just got frustrated with that situation, and we were like, well, what can we do? Let's take it into our own hands. And it's not like what we're doing is original. If you go to LA, they've got this. If you go to SF, they've got this. Portland, you know, wherever they got this, but they didn't really have a good place in Slow for it. So we just decided to take it into our own hands. We were like 20. I was like 23 at the time, and I think we like used like our student loans and like maxed out our credit cards and just built this place.
Oh my gosh!
And And then it worked out so well that we got the next warehouse, built some more rooms, got the next one, built some more, and just kind of continued that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny coming here. Like you, on the tour, you were showing me around last time I was here, and it was like, and we have this part, and we have this part, and we have this, just like rows and rows and rows and rows and rows. It just keeps going, and it's kind of it's morphed so far beyond rehearsal space too.
Yeah. It started as rehearsal spaces, and that was primarily so we could rehearse. But then after building 2 warehouses out like that, we had been recording in our room, but we were like, oh, we need a proper studio.
Yeah.
So after 2 spaces, we built like the actual studio, and that's where we're at today. And
when was that?
That was in 2018,
okay.
I think. I think that was 2018. So the first one got built in 2012. I think the next one was like 2014.
Wow. So you had a lot of years of just practice space. Like is.
And there was like 7 of us in like a tiny little room practicing, just sweating and just like, but we were extremely grateful to have that. But then eventually we were just like, okay, let's build an actual studio.
Yeah.
So we like planned this whole place out and just built it.
That's so cool. So do you have what's your training as far as record? Like, how did you learn? How do you know? Like, there's everything when I look around, not just this control room, but also the studio itself, like where the artist would typically be. It all looks very intentional, and that I know that's a lot of work. Is that what you've trained in, or how did you figure out how to do all this?
No, so before we started this, like Wes and I, we had 0 construction experience pretty much. I remember the first spot we did, I was on the floor, like on my knees, like with like YouTube on my phone, reading about how to center walls 16 on center.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea, but I already had like $4,000 of lumber that we already bought, like sitting in the parking lot, and we're like, yo, we got to get this up. Like we got to start putting this together. So like YouTube helped us out a lot.
Yeah, thanks Greg and YouTube.
but then when it came time to do the studio, we actually we read a lot of books about sound absorption and just how to treat sound. And we put a lot of studying into that, about all the angles that you want, the dimensions, this and that. And yeah, we just kind of nerded out on it, and it was fun. And it worked out, and we really do think that like our live room in there, it sounds really, really good.
It sounds really good.
It's like great room for drums, great room for having a whole band in, so proud of it.
What was the first project you did in here?
Probably
yourself. But do you remember what was the first thing you recorded in this room?
It was I think it was a band, a local awesome band. They're not together anymore, but Captain Nasty. Yeah, shout out Captain Nasty. Badass. I think they might have been the first commercial project we did in here. We may have done ourselves first, but I'm not sure. I don't think so, honestly.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, how many bands would you say come through here on a basis?
Well, I mean, just in like the 13 rehearsal rooms we have, there's probably like 18 bands or so, because some bands share rooms. And so they've all been through the studio. They've all brought their friends and stuff. But then we have tons of bands that don't rent a room from us that have came in here and recorded too. Hundreds, probably. It's really hard to say, but we've had like hundreds of bands come through here from all over, from San Diego and anywhere in California, and even Seattle, and just all over. So
nice. That is so cool. Do you still play
drums?
Yeah, in a band.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I play drums in Word Sauce. We just played a show last weekend at Live Oak. It was awesome.
Nice.
And yeah, we're working on the album.
Sweet.
So
where did the name Sauce Pot come from?
So Sauce Pot, it came from, we already had the band Word Sauce.
Yeah.
So we had this band called Word Sauce. We were like a funk hip hop band. We're all young. And then when we built this place, we wanted to incorporate the name Sauce in it. So we were like, well, how can we, I think we just sat around for a few hours, and then we just came up with Sauce Pot. Because it's like we're like a melting pot of all these different bands that make up the music scene here in SLO. We've got reggae bands, folk bands, indie bands, metal bands, funk bands. We got like all these, so we're like just this big sauce pot of all these genres mixed up, and that's kind of what makes us up.
So you had that name even before the studio was built.
We had Word Sauce before the studio was built. But
Okay.
But Sauce Pot was like, we were like actively looking for a name, and that's when we came up with Sauce Pot.
I love it too, because like that's where mixing happens.
Yeah, there's honestly like the more you dive into it and then think about it, there's like all these other like meanings that you can make from it.
Yeah.
We do that all the time, but it really just came because it had the word sauce in it.
Yeah.
And it summed up that we're just like this conglomerate like mix of all these bands and stuff, and that's one thing we've always said about this place was like the Sauce Pot is built by musicians for musicians.
Yes.
Like we weren't construction guys at the time, like, oh, let's make some money and do this. Like we were musicians looking to give musicians what we knew they needed.
Yeah.
Which was a place they could come day or night and practice and refine
And
their
just
craft.
be loud. Yeah.
And be loud. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So when I was in Portland, I was running a music school, and we had a studio in there. It was a very basic studio. It was a school for kids, and we'd have like summer camps come through. We'd do like birthday parties. It was super, like all my audio engineers would hate their lives because I'm like, no, just like literally just the track, no mixing, don't do anything, don't touch it. And they're like, but it sounds so, and I'm like, I don't care. They're 6. It's their birthday. Just burn the CD. Anyway, so I developed there a super basic idea of like, it expanded my horizons a lot to the possibilities and kind of the recording scene. And I don't know, can you take people through, so like, what are some basic expectations that you would want to set with someone if they're thinking, oh, I've had this band for a while, I've been kind of jamming with my friends, where we wrote a song or two, then
yeah,
what?
So if you're a band and you're thinking that the studio is the next step for you, play some live shows, you have a couple songs, and you think it's time to track them, I think number one is just like rehearse them, like get them super tight.
Yes.
Come into the studio like with all the kinks already worked out. Decide whether or not you're going to be playing to a metronome from the get-go. And just like work out all the kinks, because then when you come in here, it's just like smooth sailing,
Mm-hmm.
But also think about like the tracking process. Do you guys all want to track live? Do you want to track the rhythm section live, drums and bass, and then overdub everything else? Think about what's going to be best for the song.
And how, if you've never done that, how would you even start to think like, okay, actually that seems like a good idea?
So I think like just listen to some music from other people and go off of what they did, off for what you like for your style. So usually when you listen to a group or an artist, you can tell if the drums are live tracked or if they're programmed by a computer. And so get your production, like base your production off of the music that you want to sound like.
Yeah, that's good. Really good advice. And the drums, I mean, they're all. Can you describe the setup for drums? That was always one of the biggest things. Like, okay, are you gonna have a drummer? Okay.
Yeah. So, like, as a drummer,
yeah,
and like I love recording drums. When we first built this place, we would put 20 microphones on the drums.
Yeah.
Every individual drum. Overheads, rooms, and honestly, and that is important. But what I've learned, like over the years too, is that it is really more about the placement of the mics. And I mean, you can get an amazing drum sound with just a couple of room mics if you put them in the right spot.
Sure.
And it also depends on like the sound you want to go for. A lot of times we'll close mic everything so that if we want, we can sample replace it easily. But then we'll rely on the room mics for the mix as well. So it just depends. But yeah, you can go either way. We definitely have some tips and tricks of like where we like to put mics and stuff like that. Like one thing we've been doing is we've been putting an SM7B right in front of the kit, just above the kick drum. And that's been like a killer sound for us. We've done stuff like taping like a SM57 on the floor, a couple feet in front of the kit. There's all sorts of little things that you can do that we've picked up along the way from other engineers and this and that can really make a cool drum sound. And depending on if you want to have that more of like roomy feel, like almost like live, like hip-hoppy lo-fi sound, or if you want like a super polished metal sound, there's all sorts of different things you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And drums are, they're just so loud, Billy. They're so loud.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah. 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 And then as far as time goes, I know that one thing again, the way I described it to people is we're like your starter studio, like we're the school. It's like, this is where, we teach people how to play instruments. We teach people how to sing. We teach people how to be in a band, not just kids, but adults too. And I kind of was like, we teach you what to expect from a studio. Our rates were not studio rates, but also you're not and one thing that people kept coming in and running into was time, and they always seriously underestimated how long it would take. We'd spend an hour and not finish a song, and we hadn't even started on the mixing.
Oh yeah. You can go into a black hole of time in the studio.
Yeah.
And so that's why, number one, it's just best to be prepared.
Yes.
But it is important to set realistic expectations. Like, I've seen a lot of drummers come in and let's say they're doing 9 songs on an album. I would say like most drummers that I've seen top out, at least for performance, like if you want to get the best performance out of someone, doing like 4 or 5 songs a day.
Sure.
I mean, you could do a little more, but like that's a good average of like if you're a drummer coming in and you're well rehearsed and you want to do 9 songs, I'd say
split it up.
Have that take 2 days, you know? But yeah, and there's no set like formula for how long things take. But it's best to, when you get in the studio, to, if you can, just not be concerned about the time and really just think about the product that you're making. Because we've seen it before. We've seen bands have to rush things at the end of a session. It happens. But it's just not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, there was one time where we had just recently we had a band in here from San Diego. They're called Cap. Awesome band. And they came up from San Diego and stayed in Slow for 5 days to make an album.
Nice.
And it was like, day 5, and Wes was running that session and crushing it, doing his thing. I was next door in our video editing room, just like in like a video editing hole.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he like bangs on my door and he's like, dude, they gotta go like kind of soon. He's like, but we got all this stuff to track. He's like, can you track the percussion for these songs in the studio? And I'm going to go next door to our hourly room and I'm going to track the organ for this song.
Oh my gosh.
So it was really cool. So at the end of this project, I was in here tracking congas on one of their songs and some percussion. He was next door tracking organ, and we just like crushed it and we got it done. Like half the band was doing their thing. I had the drummer over here and we were doing our thing. And we got the work done twice as fast, and we got it done. And that album's out now. It's called Living Room, and it's amazing. And
nice.
But yeah, it was just like a really fun session. So even though we were pressed for time, we made the best of it. And that's kind of like what Wes and I try and do here is like we're about the music and the product. You know,
Yeah.
it's like we're going to be leaning on our time because we just want this to sound good.
And that goes, I mean, that is like the perfect example of what you said earlier, by musicians for musicians. Like, you have to be a musician in order to like click in to like, oh, they need this, I'll just step in and do that. Like, there's you can't fake that.
Yeah, no, like that's but that's how it should be, you know?
Yeah.
It's like that's what makes a good student, I feel like. So.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a great segue. You mentioned video editing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I would say it was around like 2020, around like the COVID era, was when we got into making music videos. Before that, we had just been audio engineers. We'd always kind of messed around with cameras, but never commercial and never like that serious. But we met an amazing photographer and videographer named Xander. Started coming around, taught us like everything we know, and he's just like a G.
Nice.
And so yeah, he started coming around, taught us a bunch of stuff, got us up to speed. And then we started making music videos. It started actually with like live performance videos.
Yeah.
So we would do like in the studio videos. So we'd have a band come in and set up mics, set up cameras, and track them live. And like I
mean, that's huge for promoting your albums is like
exactly,
little clips of you in the studio doing certain songs. Like that's huge.
I think like one we did the Strawberry Girls, which is a touring like math rock band. They might have been one of the first ones we did. And dude, they're awesome guys. And they came in. It was funny because they were about to leave on tour the day we did it. So they were like, yeah, we're down to do it, but we can only do it at 8 a.m. So like we all
Which
showed...
for dirty musicians is really, really early.
Yes, okay. Thank you. You understand. Yeah. So we all showed up at like 7:30 to set up. And they did like 2 songs back to back, and we did like 3 takes of it or so, and it got hot. It was like in the middle of July or something too, kind of like it is now.
Yeah.
And we're all just like sweating, but it was beautiful, to be honest. Like all of us there at 8 in the morning, just like jamming out super loud. And that video's on our YouTube, Softspot Studios YouTube channel.
Nice.
Along with some others too. So
I'll link to that in the show notes.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So just here, or do you do you have another space too, right?
Yeah, so we have a video studio that we built, and that has a stage with a complete light show. We've got like a couple vinyl drop down panels, like for a green screen, like a white or black or whatever kind of effect you want. We've got some furniture, props in there, and just, like a hazer, all sorts of things to make a music video in a controlled environment, and to also get that live look in a controlled environment. So, and we've done some shoots in there doing the same concept, and usually we'll let the band decide, like, yeah, you want to do it in the studio, you want to do it in there? It just depends.
Yeah.
It's just a different look.
This I have zero experience with. So what would you say, like, who should do a music video? And how in the world would you prepare for that? Like,
okay, so everyone should do a music video because, like, in today's day and age, everything is so visual.
Sure.
You make one music video, you can cut, 20 clips up from that and post that on social media.
Yeah.
So, like, everyone should do a music video. The way to do a music video, though, like an actual music video is usually done kind of Milli Vanilli style. So the song's already recorded.
Yeah.
And then you would just play to the song. And you can add it, like, at first we just did live performances, but then we started doing, like, storylines and stuff in the music videos. So that's up to you how you want to do it. But I do recommend having a storyline and a plot in your music videos. Along with live performance shots.
Yeah.
Just because that's what people want to see.
Yeah.
They want to see a different side of you. They want to see the band acting goofy or doing whatever. But
do people come in like crazy costumes? Like,
yeah.
What are some things you've seen in there?
Well, okay, we did a Proxima Parada music video in there for the song Hannah Hannah. And for that one, they were all like in like a satanic cult type thing, and it was like we released it on Halloween. So we had like a baby goat in there, and like the premise of the music video.
Baby goats are really cute.
His name was Oreo.
Oreo.
And he was extremely cute. But I heard he grew up to be kind of a I don't know.
Well, he has an ego, man.
Yeah.
He was in a music video. He's a celebrity.
Yeah, he's a rock star now, so I can't hate on him for that.
No, don't hate Oreo.
Oreo. So yeah. We had a baby goat in there. Wes and I just did a music video recently where the actor was dressed in a full werewolf costume.
Oh, nice.
It was over the top. It hasn't been released yet. It'll be coming out soon. But yeah, we've seen a lot of stuff in there. A lot of weird stuff happens in there. Like it really does. Like,
well, music videos are, I mean, they're just weird.
Yeah,
they're just weird.
They're extravagant.
I'm always like, how do people come up with this stuff? Like, I guess it's a different part of my brain. My brain doesn't think that way.
Some people are like Wes is really good at coming up with music video ideas. Like some people just hear music and then it makes them picture images.
Sure.
And a lot of times, like that's how people will come up with ideas for their music video. They're just like, well, what is this making me think or feel or whatever?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just like, hey, I want to do this funny thing and incorporate it into a video. And it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So then would you mix the entire thing together? You'd take the video, you'd do the editing, you'd tie it to the track and give the whole file?
Yes. Well, so the song would already be recorded and edited. And like you'd have the final song ideally already. Okay. So basically we would just take that, and as we're shooting the video, we would just be playing it over speakers, playing it back so the band can play along to it and like reference it and stuff like that and have something to go off of. And then we'll film all that, but then we just take all that footage and we just edit a video over the music that's already done.
Sure.
If it were a live like recording, kind of like the Strawberry Girls one that we did, like live in the studio, then in that case, we would edit the video and the audio like all.
You have to have them the same.
Yeah, we'd edit them all at once and like, and then just like, so it'd be like twice as much work at the end. But I mean, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Like,
yeah, but you're not having to piece together stories and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times too, it does help to like already have, when you're making a music video, to have like all your scenes written out and some kind of treatment, and like so that you know what shots are going to go where already before you even start to edit. So
makes sense. Man, that's so cool.
The mission of the Zeitgeist Academy is simple. I want everyone to live their best musical life. If your dream includes singing with confidence, I got you. I made a mini online course so you can get out of musical drama and finally understand which vocal elements make you sound good. Banish forever those fears of being out of key, off rhythm, and other assorted mayhem. Step into your best musical life, my friends. Sign up for the free course at zeitgeistacademy.com/radio.
So I'm loving hearing about some of the different projects. The goal of this podcast is to help people feel like they can do stuff, right? like the world of music is like, oh, I never thought about that. Let's go try it. Or I never thought, or like, so what I love about all these stories is there's people in kind of all different areas. You mentioned like folk bands and metal bands and jazz bands and, laying down tracks, making videos, like, I don't know. What are some other? I'd love to hear a couple other stories that you have from either recording or doing the videos or both.
Yeah. So let's see. Like, let's think about some fun projects that we've done.
Any amateur-ish stuff, like people getting into it that you just felt like was so cool to be part of.
Yeah, like I mean, that's most of our clientele, to be honest, are amateurs, and there's nothing to be ashamed in that, and I think Wes and I are both good at like guiding people who may be less experienced through the process so that they can get the best end product and the best song. So I would say that's most of our clientele is people that don't have a lot of experience, But then we have people that have been in the studio 100 times come to us too, and they know what they want, and they know where they want to place mics and this and that, and that's really cool too. It's cool to do everything, because doing everything will just kind of make you better at everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're just down to do whatever,
Didn't you tell me last time I was here that you did a vocal track for like Disney or something?
Yeah. So
what was that?
That was.
Are you allowed to talk about it?
I think so.
Okay.
I guess we'll find out. No, everything's already been released. Yeah. So yeah, I think. But that was funny. So yeah, Disney hit us up and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna send you a talent," and it was funny. And that's how we know we're gonna get a celebrity into the sauce pot. Is anytime a production company hits us up and they're like, "The talent can only be there from blah 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 blah. Are you available?" It's like anytime they say the talent, that's how we know. Like, ooh, we're getting a celebrity. So yeah, Disney did that to us, and they like wouldn't tell us at all who it was or what it was for. But we booked off the time, and they had all these like requirements, which actually weren't unreasonable, but just a lot of tech specs that we had to meet, which we did, and we set everything up for them. And then we ended up doing, we did a voiceover, and we recorded some of the lyrics it was the movie Encanto, which came out. Yeah, it was a good movie. It was really good.
Yeah.
And so they sent this actor, he's a younger kid named Renzi Felice, super cool kid. And they sent him, he played Camilo in the, I believe. So yeah, they sent him, and the day he showed up, and they sent us the tracks like that day. And it's funny that when they sent us the music, they wouldn't even give us the whole song. They like gave us like parts of the song. I'm not sure if it's because they weren't finished it or they just like were afraid of people leaking it.
Yeah.
But like, so we had this track, and he was like, okay, we want him to sing over like minute 2 to minute 2.5, and he has his lyrics. And then we need to do some voiceover stuff for the movie. And he had to be on a Zoom call for that with Lin Manuel Miranda.
Yes, please.
who wrote that movie.
Yeah.
And so we had him in our vocal booth on a Zoom call with Lin Manuel, and it was really cool. Like, what was it like for that? I just remember him, Lin Manuel, being like, all right, Renzi, that was really cool, but now I want you to say that same line as if you're in a room full of 30 people and no one's listening to you. So like really scream it. Okay, cool, Renzi. Now say that same line again, but kind of like whisper it into someone's ear. And so he had all these like techniques of different ways he wanted it, and we didn't know which he was going to keep or not, but I guess he had something in mind. So he was coaching Renzi, and then and it was cool to see. And then he ended up doing some lyrics for We Don't Talk About Bruno,
the biggest earworm in the whole freaking movie,
which like blew up like all over like social media. And so he recorded a couple lines for that song. It was just like part of the chorus and like some backup stuff. It wasn't anything major, but yeah, it was in there.
That's so cool. So you're technically in We Don't Talk About Bruno.
Yeah, we actually, if you look at the credits in the end of the movie,
you're in there.
Saucepot Studios.
Man, what does that feel like? That's
San
cool.
Luis Obispo. Yeah, no, it was awesome. I mean,
so can you sort of technically say you've had Lin Manuel Miranda in your studio?
In the studio? Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he was on the screen right there.
He was in a Zoom.
He was telling us what to do. He was like,
yeah.
He was running the session, honestly.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So and he's a G, man. Like, it was cool to see him work.
Yeah.
He was very concise. He knew what he wanted. He had a lot of good ideas to try out, and like, it was just watching him, I immediately understood like why he's so successful.
Sure.
So
very, very high standards, very exacting, but also, I mean, because he was coaching a kid, right? Like,
well, yeah, he's like 22. When I say kid, he's like 22.
Okay. I'm never sure. Like, I think that character is pretty young in the movie, right?
He is. Yeah, he is younger in the movie, but I think he was like 20, in his 20s.
Okay.
So
yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. The talent, huh? The talent.
Yeah, the talent, and he was cool. So we've also had Josh Brolin in here, who is also just an amazing guy. Came through toward the studio, and then he did like a voiceover for like some Comcast thing. But he was just like the most down to earth, like chill, just like making jokes, cracking jokes. Like he was hilarious, and so we've had him. We've had Renzi back a couple of times. He did some other work for like American Horror Story here. And there's probably a couple others that I'm forgetting, but yeah.
What would you say, like looking at all these different stories, what do you think like separates like the people who really know the talent? Like what do they do differently?
I think I don't exactly know. I think they stuck with it long enough to make it work. I think everyone has talent in some way, shape, or form. And I really just think these guys just stuck with it long enough to make a career out of it, which is like way harder than it sounds.
Yeah. Well, one of my other guests that I had several episodes ago was a friend of mine who's a composer in New York City. Like her goal is to be on Broadway eventually. And that was a really cool interview. But the timeline, you picture like, writing musicals and having a career. Lin Manuel Miranda is actually very rare because of how young he is. Like that doesn't normally happen.
Yeah. I mean,
like she's got like a 40-year plan. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing next year. She's got like literally, it's like that long that they teach you in school. Like this is what you need to be prepared to do.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Like because to perfect a craft, I mean, it takes that dedication. People talk about the 10,000 hours.
Yeah,
and I really think that is true.
Yeah.
And some people reach that 10,000 hours sooner than others because I mean to reach it quickly, you got to go full time, and some people do put in 8 to 10 hours a day in their craft, and they do that for 3-4 years straight, and it shows. And they couple that with just raw talent and being a phenom, and that's also like a thing. There's also that, and there's also just being in the right space at the right time. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. It's like it's tough to say what exactly makes those people who they are, but I do think one thing about it is just having confidence in themselves and just like doing it, putting the work in long enough to and being smart and changing and pivoting when things don't work, being able to pivot into what does work. Just things like that.
Yeah, totally. I know that this is a bit of a rant, but rejection is always a big issue with people, and it does not matter if you're super famous or if you're just trying out for your little community choir and you don't get in. Like rejection can hit you really bad, and I think a big part of just being a healthy musician is just letting that not get to you and understanding like your place and how it's really just not all about you, right? If you get rejected, it's probably has nothing to do with you and your abilities versus like just what they are looking for at that particular point in time. So just getting back up and continuing to put yourself out there and keep doing your auditions and keep trying out for stuff and understanding it's so much bigger than just you.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that you will learn more from your failures than from your successes. So I mean, it's important as a growing musician to go out there and fail 20, 30, 50, 100 times, because like you're gonna learn more from that failure than if you were to just go out and everything was perfect and you crushed it and this and that and then you're just on to the next. Like you kind of need those failures to shape who you are as a musician or as a creator. So it's important to fail and fail a lot.
Fail a lot and get to where it just doesn't bother you anymore.
Yeah,
If you don't get it, it just doesn't bother you. And and in the beginning, that's really hard to do. It's like when you're a kid and you watch a kid having a mental meltdown. Again, at the school, you know, it was all ages, and kids would come in and they're just like screaming over something, melting down over something. And you look at them and you're like, man, I feel that. Like, I still have that moment. I just don't scream in public anymore. You know, like it's kind of this, because we've experienced a lot as adults, you know, if our ice cream falls off of our cone, we'll be like, dang it. But we're not going to like lose our mind over it. But that's only because
and we'll learn from it.
Yeah.
You know, if my ice cream fell off my cone, well, maybe I was holding it in a bad way. Well, it's like in that same way, we learn from our failures.
Yeah.
You know, if this didn't work out, they didn't like this, well, maybe my chorus wasn't catchy enough. And how can I improve it, you know? And it's good to self-reflect, and that just helps people grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like all for failing.
Yeah.
You know, and it shouldn't scare people, you know? Like, it shouldn't scare people to fail. Like, if you fail at something, like, so what? Just go do something else. Like, it's fine, you know?
It's fine. Yeah. Yeah. I bet you see a lot of people come in here with angsty. Do you have to talk a lot of people down?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's easy to see musicians get worked up and get in their head because they feel the pressure of a time clock on them. They
messed up their take.
They messed up their take. They feel like they're not performing as well. That's easy to happen. And as an engineer, part of the engineer's job is to coach that musician into getting the best takes that you can out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you got to know your limits, and you don't want to push someone to do a 30th take when it's really not necessary. So there is like an aspect of that too.
Yeah, you're like a therapist as well as a coach, as well as a professional, you know, the engineer.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just going back to the 10,000 hours, one of my engineer, this phenomenal musician, shout out to Sam's, actually stepped up. I think he got promoted since I left, well deserved, but I hired him as, I believe, as a guitar teacher, and then and a drum teacher, and he could work in the studio too. So he was kind of like checking a lot of boxes of like things that like finding drum teachers could be a challenge. Finding engineers was definitely a challenge, and Sam could just kind of do everything. He could lead bands. He was just always kept his cool. Still is like that. And he decided one day, he walks in and he's like, hey, I've been trying to pick up piano. And I teach piano. He's like, hey, could I get a couple pointers? You know, do I do this or that? And he'd just go practice. And every day, he'd come in early, like hours before his shift, and just find an empty practice room and just play. And he started asking me more and more complex questions to where I'm like, whoa, dude, like, because he had the basis in theory from all of the other stuff he played. He's freaking good now. He's like an excellent piano.
You know, that it's funny because, you know, I've seen the same thing here where, like, we've had a couple drummers that rent out. Either we have like a drum room just for drummers, or just like in a band room. We have some drummers that have came in here, and they'll rent the spot, and I'll hear them practicing every day or almost every day for like months.
Yeah.
And then like a couple months later, that same drummer is just so much better.
It's wild.
And it's like it makes me happy because it's like, man, like because of this place, someone came in here and, you know, refined their craft a little, and now they're gonna go out into the world and like show their skill.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's just a beautiful thing.
That is pretty cool.
Like, I love that. I love that.
That is pretty cool. Do you like every time you go out, like San Luis Obispo has a ton of music, live music. Do you just see people, you know, absolutely everywhere?
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty embedded in the music scene, and and that's, you know, we love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Have you ever done a live event?
Like
outside here?
As the Sauce Pod, or just like
yeah, like have you ever recorded or videoed a live event?
Oh, yeah. We've done that a lot. Like we've done we've taken video of like live performances from bands. Like we've shot like concerts in the Plaza, a couple of their bands for that. We've done some other stuff like that. We've put on our own little productions as Word Sauce as our band too.
Yeah.
We've had some stuff like that too. But I will say, like, running live sounds, we do that, and we have all the gear to do that, and we don't mind it, but it is a little bit of a different workflow than like the studio hustle that I prefer more. But and a lot of times we'll just lend our gear out to bands, and they can just like run a live set themselves, like
nice.
You know, and
that's amazing.
Yeah. So like
that's huge.
We're down to do that, you know.
Yeah.
And we're down for whatever. So
yeah. Equipment, gear. I mean, it's endless. If you're a band.
Yeah, I mean that's like, as a musician, we'll probably just be buying gear the rest of our lives. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So, what are some of when you were first starting out here, back before the studio, when you were doing
just the
rehearsal spaces, obviously it was serving a personal need that you guys had, so you were rehearsing here. Are any of the bands that any of like your first people that you brought in, are they still around?
Still here? Yeah. So our longest running tenants ever are Proxima Parada, and their drummer is still in the same room he was in
2012
12 or 10 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And so like technically, then that's what I tell everyone, is like technically they're like our longest running tenant. And I mean, we have quite a few people who have been here over 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and it's cool to see like Proxima, like they're like blowing up right now. They're like on huge tours. They went viral on like TikTok and stuff, and like it's cool to see that, you know.
Yeah.
And we're just like super like stoked for it, and just I mean, just supportive in any way possible, you know.
One thing I just love about the music community generally is, you know, despite what you might see on, you know, Hollywood TV or whatever, like overall musicians like are constantly cheering for each other. Like it's so supportive, no matter where you are, amateur choir all the way up to like, this is a exceedingly professional. I mean,
musicians just get each other. I feel like they're like, you play? Oh,
yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. That's so cool. So I have one last question for you. So this is Zeitgeist Radio. Do you know what zeitgeist means? Kind of a weird word.
Yeah, kind of, but I don't want to define
sure.
it because I don't want to.
No problem.
So
zeitgeist means like spirit of the times.
Yes.
It's kind of like the feel of like what it's like to be alive at any point in time. You know, the zeitgeist of here and now in San Luis Obispo, or of like 17th century opera, or like wherever. And part of what I'm trying to do is help people just find, like I said, find a niche, find a place, find stuff that lights them up. And that comes from personal like enthusiasm from when like I've been able in the past to like plug into something. And if you can kind of plug into the zeitgeist, to me that makes the music just all the more like wow, because it just makes sense. Like all music, I firmly believe that all music is relevant, and all music, if someone made it, it's relevant.
Yeah.
If nothing else is relevant to them, and they were trying to tell you a story, something. So if you can figure out where that came from, you can kind of feel that and feel alive. So there's this moment I call a zeitgeist moment, which is when it just all kind of flows in, you know, it's just like you get it and you're plugged in. What was a recent zeitgeist moment for you?
So, I mean, it's funny because like recording in the studio, basically like that's the moment you're trying to capture.
Totally.
Like so many bands like that I listened to, like that I listened to growing up, and when I listen to them now, it's like it's cool because they captured that specific moment in time in the studio. And, had they came and done it the next day, it would have sounded a little bit different, But there's something just about all those people being in that room together, making that music for that single day that, you're capturing magic,
Yes.
And you don't know.
Man, I would never have thought of that, but you're so right.
Well, it's like you don't know when or how the magic is going to happen. All you can do is try and give yourself everything possible to make it happen. And then after that, you really just got to clear that thought from your head and just be super present in the moment and just do what you do and record. And I think some of the greatest songs, some of the biggest hits out there were moments like that where everyone was just vibing off each other in the energy of the room, and it was this and that, and it was just something about that particular time and place where these beings got together and made something, and we were able to just capture it and be able to replay that. It's magical, and you can't replicate it on purpose. It's one of those things that just happens, and that's why I love the recording studio so much. And
man, that is again, I would never have thought of that, but you're so right. Like watching other people have their moments, like that's what you do.
It is cool. It's cool to have those moments working with people on their projects. Like we've had lots of projects in here where it just felt like, dang, like we're all in this moment together, guys, and this is just working. This is flowing. Like that take you just did was amazing. And it's like, and there's moments like that where it makes you forget about like everything else in the world. And it kind of, it's like, it makes you realize, man, we're just all these like little like energy balls, like buzzing around, and we're just like vibing off each other.
I know.
And like recording studios capture that. And that's what's so cool about them. I think that's what makes me love being in a recording studio is capturing zeitgeist moments.
Awesome. Oh, well, Billy, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Yeah, definitely, dude. We should do it again too.
Yeah, this was
down.
Super duper fun.
Yeah, anytime. We can have more people, do some more guests.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm down.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
So cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Zeitgeist Radio. To uplevel your musical journey and become a music student for life, join the Zeitgeist Academy by signing up for my bi-weekly newsletter. You'll get exclusive content, blog posts, and behind-the-scenes insights. I love putting it together, and you'll love reading it. Head over to zeitgeistacademy.com/radio. That's ZEITGEIST academy.com/radio.